I'm going to read chapter 10, in which Patriatout did only too glad to get out with the loss of his shoes. Before reading chapter 10, I'll talk about chapter 9. In the Mongolia, sailed through the Red Sea and the Aden Bay, and the ship landed at Aden port to get coal. Patriatout met Fix the detective, but Fix hid himself. He disguised as a merchant, a businessman. According to chapter 9, and there's a mention about Sepoy rebellion. It happened 1857. The story basically is was in 1872. So in "15 years later, I was told, and after Sepoy rebellion, and the English officers went to India. I checked the Sepoy, the Indian military, the Sepoy rebellion. There are many views, and India people thought it was the first independence war against the British Empire. But historical video and during the Sepoy rebellion, many English, British colonists were massacred, 800 more. India is a very wide country, and after Mughal empires, India is one of the largest countries in Asia. Asia is big, large continent. Okay, reading is narrator. Here you go.
Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne, translated by George Makepeace Towell. Chapter 10, in which Passepartout is only too glad to get off with the loss of his shoes. Everybody knows that the great reversed triangle of land with its base in the north and its apex in the south, which is called India, embraces 1,400,000 square miles, upon which is spread unequally a population of 180 millions of souls.
The British Crown exercised a real and despotic dominion of the large portion of the vast country as its Governor-General station at Calcutta governors at
Bombay and in Bengal, and a lieutenant governor at Agra.
But British India prefers to call on emperors 700,000 square miles, population from 100 to 110 million of inhabitants.
A considerable portion of India is still free from British authority, and there are certain ferocious Rajas in the interior who are absolutely independent.
And the celebrated East India Company was all-powerful from 1756, when the English first gained foothold on the spot when out sent the cities of Madras down to time with great Sepoy insurrection.
Province after province, purchasing the native chiefs, whom it seldom paid, and appointed the Governor-General and his subordinates, civil and military.
But the East India Company had now passed away. leaving the British position in India directly under the control of the Crown.
The aspect of the country, as well as the manners and distinctions of race, is daily changing.
Formerly, one of the village to travel in India is by the old Cambro method of going on foot on horseback in palanquins, or unwieldy coaches. Now first the symbols placed on the Indus and the Ganges and the Great.
Branch lines join the main line at many points on its route, traverses the peninsula from Bombay to Calcutta in 3 days.
This line is not in a direct line across India.
Between Bombay and Calcutta, as the bird flies, is only from 1,000 to 1,100 miles, but the deflections of the road increase this distance by more than a third.
And the journal of the Great Indian Peninsula Railway is as follows. Leaving Bombay, it passes through Sarasat, crossing the continent after China, goes over a chain of the Western Ghats.
Ghats runs thence northeast as far as Burhanpur, skirts the nearly independent territory of Bundelkhand, ascends to Allahabad, turns thence eastwardly, meeting the Ganges at Benares, then departs from the river a little.
A little later, descending southeastward by the Burdivan and the French town of Chandigarh at its terminus at Calcutta.
Passengers of the Mongolia went ashore at 4:30 p.m. At exactly 8, the train would start for Calcutta.
Mr. Fogg, after speeding before his whist partners left the steamer, gave his servants several errands to do, urged it upon him to be at the station promptly at 8 with his regular steppage.
The second, like an astronomical clock, directed his steps to the passport office.
As for the wondrous Bombay, its famous City Hall, its splendid library, its port and docking, its bazaars, mosques, synagogue, its American churches, and then are many churches and pagodas in Marble Hill.
He cared not a straw to see them.
He would not deign to examine the masterpiece of Elephanta, who the emissaries of Georgia, and conceived southeast from dark those form remains of
the Canarian grottos of the island of Salsetta.
Having transacted in his business at the passport office to Paul, the first quiet railway station.
To him, the landlord especially recommended a certain giblet of native rabbit on which he prided himself.
Mr. Paul accordingly tasted the dishes, but the sport is the sauce and found it from palatable.
He rang for the landlord, and on his appearance said, fixing his clear eyes upon him, "Is this rabbit, sir?" "Yes, my lord," the rogue boldly replied. "Rabbit from the jungles."
Ah, this rabbit then didn't have the meals. When he was killed, meal, no louder. What a rabbit meal, as I swear to you.
Be so good, landlord, as not to swear, but remember this. Cats were formerly considered in India as sacred animals. That was in good time. For the cats, my lord?
Price for the travelers advised, after which Mr. Fogg quietly continued his dinner.
Trix had gone on shore shortly after Mr. Fogg, and his first destination was the headquarters of the Bombay police.
He made himself known as a London detective who told his business at Bombay and the personal affairs relative to the supposed murder. Nevertheless, Clipper One had arrived from London.
It had not reached the office. Indeed, there had not yet been time for it to arrive.
Fix was so disappointed and tried to obtain also the arrest from the director of the Bombay police.
The director refused, as the matter concerned the London office, which alone could legally deliver the warrant.
Fix didn't answer and would pay. To resign himself to wait the arrival of the importance of the document, but he was determined not to lose sight of the mysterious law as long as he stayed in Bombay.
He did not doubt for a moment, any more than Patriatout, that Phileas Fogg would remain there, at least until it was time for the warrant to arrive.
Patriatout, however, had no sooner heard his master's orders to leaving the Mongolia than he saw at once they were to leave Bombay as they had done Suez first, and the journey would be extended at least
Calcutta, and perhaps beyond that place.
He began to ask himself if this bet that Mr. Fogg talked about was not really in good earnest. whether his fate was not in truth forcing him, despite his level of sport around the world in 8 days.
Having purchased the usual quota of shirts and shoes, he took a leisurely promenade about the streets, where crowds of people of many nationalities, Europeans, Persians with pointed caps, Banyas with round turbans,
Sind also with the squares upon a surprise. With black mitres and long-locked Armenians who were collected. It happened to be the day of the post festival.
descendants of the sect of Zoroaster, the most thrifty, civilized, intelligent, and austere of the East Indians, among whom are counted the richest native merchants of Bombay, were celebrating a sort of
religious carnivals, the village procession and shows in the midst of which Indian dancing girls and a girl in those colored clothes looked up with a skull and served danced eyeless with perfect modesty
to the sound of viols and the clanging of tambourines.
Let's neither say that the Patriatout watched these curious ceremonies with a staring eyes and gay mouth. From these countenance was that of the greenest booby imaginable.
Happily for his master as well as himself, his curiosity drew him unconsciously farther off than he intended to go.
At last, having seen the first carnivores went away in distance, he was turning his steps toward the station when he happened to appreciate the splendid pagoda
and was seized with an irresistible desire to see its interior.
He was quite ignorant that it is forbidden to Christians to enter certain Indian temples and that even the faithful must not go in without first leaving their shoes outside the door.
It may be said here that the wise policy of the British government severely punishes a disregard of the practices of the native religions.
Patriatout had thinking no harm, went in like a simple tourist, and was soon lost to admiration of the splendid brown ornamentation which everywhere met his.
When of a sudden he found himself sprawling on the sacred flagging.
He looked up to behold 3 enlightened priests who forthwith fell upon him, tore off his shoes, and began to beat him with loud, savage exclamations.
He was soon upon his feet again, and lost no time in knocking down 2 of his long-gowned adversaries with his fists, and a vigorous application of his toes. Then, rushing out of the pagoda
as fast as his legs could carry him, he soon escaped the third priest by mingling with the crowd in the streets.
At 5 minutes before 8, Patriatout, hatless, shoeless, and having in the squabble lost his package of shirts and shoes, rushed breathlessly into the station.
Fix, who had followed Mr. Fogg to the station and saw that he was really going to leave Bombay, was there stopped on the platform.
To follow the supposed robber to Calcutta, and farther if necessary.
Patriatout did not observe the detective who stood in an obscure ground to Fix heard him relate his adventure in a few words to his foe.
I hope that this will not happen again, said Phileas Fogg coldly, as he got into the train. Poor Patriatout, quite crestfallen, followed his master without a word.
Fix was on the point of entering another carriage. Carriage stood eyed, struck which induced him to alter his plan. No, or stay, muttered he.
It has been committed on Indian soil. I've got mine man.
Just then the locomotive gave a sharp screech. The train passed out into the darkness of night.
End of chapter 10.
Impressive. Patriot. I remembered now the name Patriatout, the servant of Mr. Phileas Fogg. At last, they landed in Bombay, and then Patriatout had an extraordinary experience. He didn't ignore tradition, and then he was beat by 3 monks, 3 priests, and temple. He ran away without his shoes or hat. So he got trouble, and then he should have he had to get on the locomotive, the train, which you had for the Calcutta. It could be long journey from Bombay to Calcutta. Okay, done.